This episode is brought to you in part by the Needle Kuda Law Firm, guidance that moves lives forward.
Welcome to this special edition of our podcast, Divorce Doesn't Suck. I'm Wendy Sloane, and I'm here with my co-host, Daniel Herrold, and we are so excited to begin the first of our 12-part series, Mapping Your New Path Forward with attorney Melissa Needle of Needle Kuda Law Firm. Welcome, Melissa, and hello, Daniel.
Thank you, Wendy. Hello to you.
Welcome, Melissa. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Daniel. It's wonderful to be here.
So our topic this month, how to hire a divorce attorney. And divorce, as we all know, is a very, very big step. And I think how we handle it is one of the most important things we can talk about to start off.
Yeah, and before we do, Wendy, I'd love to get a little bit of background on Needle Kuda, the law firm that Melissa actually founded. I was doing a little research. She founded in 1971. And so, Melissa, I'd love to learn a little bit more about kind of what your vision was when you created a firm and how it's grown. And particularly, I love the singular focus where you're focused on divorce, family law, dispute resolution, kind of those three buckets. So guide us through how you created the firm and why you kind of evolved into this singular focus.
Sure. Well, I created the firm around 11 years ago. And one of the reasons I created it because I felt that there was a gap in the other matrimonial law firms in Fairfield County. And what I mean by a gap is that there were a lot of law firms that were very aggressive and immediately put their heads down and went the litigation route. And there was a huge fight. It was a war of the roses, and it was at a tremendous cost, both financially and emotionally, to families. And the other side of that coin is there were a lot of law firms that were very touchy-feely and just wanted to settle everything and wanted to make nice and really push their clients to capitulate to unreasonable demands. And what would happen is, as time would go by, clients would realize that they really entered into a lousy deal. And so my vision was to create a law firm that really listened to their clients, understood what their goals were, and made sure that we executed. And what I mean by that is we're not afraid to go to court here. If there's an issue that can't be resolved and your spouse is being unreasonable, we will take it to the mat here and we will take it in front of a judge and let the judge make an order which will be reasonable and equitable rather than allowing a spouse to bully another spouse. And at the same time, we recognize that if an agreement can be reached, that could be very helpful for a family. So we're very in tune with trying to settle issues and cases if it can be done in a reasonable and fair manner. So I feel like this law firm really sort of fills a void that existed when I started my practice many years ago. And the practice has grown significantly. There are 4 lawyers here. There's 3 paralegals. We have a wonderful staff. And what really makes our law firm stand out is that each individual that's employed here cares about the clients. We get to know our clients very well, and we really fight hard for them, and we understand the difficulties that they are faced with.
I think it's one of the most important things. We're going to talk about how to hire a divorce attorney and how to hire the right divorce attorney, because that is the backbone to everything going forward. Because having gotten divorced myself and having been through several attorneys, I learned my lesson pretty early on that if you don't have the right person behind you, it could really unravel to some big troubles going forward. So everything that you've built is so important when we talk about this, when someone's hiring a divorce attorney.
You know,
Tell us.
Wendy, if I could chime in, I think what resonated to me, and this is the first time that I kind of heard your story, Melissa, is what I heard was balance. You know, you have the ability and the skill set to go if it's going to be high conflict or if you need to litigate, you can do that. But at the same time, you probably really are a good counselor in terms of picking your battles with your clients and determining, okay, this is a good deal and this is something that we should negotiate. So whereas I think a lot of times for people getting divorced, they either hear of the uber aggressive attorneys and it's like, who can hire that person first, or they get attorneys that, really don't do the work and it's all about settling or making sure that they get the billable hours. And so I love the idea of balance.
Yeah, balance is critical. And when you select a divorce lawyer, it's one of the most important decisions that you're going to make because you're going to be set up for many, many years based on the terms of your divorce, both in terms of money and in terms of custody. So having a lawyer who recognizes balance, recognizes your goals, and explains to you the risks associated with trying to achieve certain terms versus others is so critical.
Tell us about the process, Melissa. And before we talk about that, you both had mentioned balance. I also heard in that you care, and I think that a lot of divorce attorneys don't care that it's really about, it's just a job to get done. It's just about the money. I think that the fact that you guys care about your client and you care about, getting everything resolved, whether it's legal, whether it's in the court system, whether it's out of the court system, however it is, what's best for your client.
Yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize enough about the team that I've built here at Needle and Kuda, and we really do care about our clients. One of the reasons that I got into this area of the law was because you really feel like you're helping people through a difficult time. I have so many people say to me, how can you do divorce law? It's so difficult, it's so high conflict, you're dealing with people at a low point in their lives. And all of that is true, but at the same time, the reward that I feel when I've helped people through a difficult time and the satisfaction that I feel is really the reason that I started practicing and why I've been doing it for so long. It is hard, but the rewards are great, and I believe that everyone in this office feels the same way I do in terms of really wanting to help our clients. And I do think that that is a rare quality in a divorce lawyer. There are many lawyers who are very knowledgeable and experienced, and they might help you get through the process, but they're not going to care. And that you have to be very careful when you're looking to hire a lawyer, that they have that empathy that you can relate to.
So tell us about the process. What should someone look for when they're when they're choosing the right attorney, to choose the right attorney?
Okay, so the first hurdle that someone has to go through is if they decide they want to consult with a lawyer, how do they even get the name of a lawyer? And there's several different ways that you can do that. You can ask a trusted advisor, you can ask a money manager, you can ask an accountant, you could ask your neighbor who's been through a divorce, or you could go on a website and you can search the net and you can read reviews. And I think reviews are very revealing. Reviews are real clients talking about their experience, so it's firsthand. Once you get the name of a lawyer, you call and you make an appointment, and you usually have an interview. And the interview is critical, not only with regard to the information that you're going to receive from the lawyer, but the feeling that you get, the connection that you feel. And I know that it might sound a little odd when I say that, but when you go through the process of a divorce, it is a very intimate, private process. You're going to be sharing details of your life. So you want to make sure that you feel a connection with your lawyer. You want to be able to say anything to the lawyer. You want to feel a level of comfort with that lawyer. It is absolutely critical. And there's a book that's called Blink, and Blink is about your instinct, your first gut feeling. And I would suggest that you listen very carefully to that blink, as I like to refer it, when you interview a lawyer. Because like I said, you'll be dealing with very personal information, so you want to make sure that you feel a connection. And I often tell clients who come to see me that they should interview more than one lawyer. And the reason I suggest that is that way you have some comparison, and you could say, well, I like this lawyer more than I like that lawyer because of these reasons. If you only see one lawyer, then you don't really have any context in which to make a comparison. The other thing I strongly recommend when you're hiring a divorce lawyer is to make certain that the law firm is a law firm that practices exclusively in the area of matrimonial law. So you don't want to hire someone who does a little divorce, a little real estate, a little contract law, because they're not going to be a specialist. And the issues related to your divorce are critical to you. And you want to make sure that you have someone who is an expert in this area and not someone that simply dabbles. The other piece of advice is I would be wary of hiring a solo practitioner, because you want to make sure that whoever you hire has the bandwidth to deal with the myriad of issues that arise throughout a divorce case. And if you hire a solo practitioner, if they're unavailable for any reason, if they're on trial in another matter, if they're on vacation, if they're ill, and you have an emergent issue that arises in your divorce, it could present a real problem. You want to make sure that whoever you hire is familiar with the court system where you live. You want to make sure that they know who the judges are and who the clerks are, how to get things done quickly, how to make sure that your file is paid attention to in an appropriate way. And it helps if you have someone who knows the ins and outs of the courthouse in which your divorce is going to be entertained. You want to hire someone who has significant experience in the courtroom. And the reason I say that is not because there's a guarantee that one particular divorce will or will not end up in a courtroom, but in the event it does, you want to make sure that you have a lawyer who knows what they are doing in that context. And there's a lot to being in the courtroom. You not only have to know who the judges are and what the process is, but you have to have a firm grasp of the case, of the rules of evidence, and of the law related to your particular case and how it's going to be presented to the judge. And those are issues that are I would say, would be the top issues that I would consider when initially hiring a divorce lawyer.
Oh, those are so good. There's so many things I want to spin off of that. Melissa, I want to go back to the kind of the first part, because I'm sure in your practice you probably find clients that come in probably too late. They've already made several decisions, or they've had certain communications with their soon-to-be ex, and you're like, oh, I wish you would have come in, 30, 60, 90 days ago. I wish you hadn't done that. What advice would you give someone as far as when should they start start that interview process of maybe evaluating attorneys? When should they hire attorney? And are there some certain things that are like, don't do this until you hire someone?
Yeah, those are great questions, Daniel. You should meet with a lawyer as soon as you are thinking that divorce may be on the horizon. Even if you are uncertain, it would be wise to at least make an appointment and interview a lawyer and find out what the laws in your state are, find out what the process is, how long a divorce will take. And that way you're able to put in context whether or not you want to travel the path of divorce or not. You can also ask a lot of questions in an initial interview about things that you should and should not be doing in the event you do decide to get divorced. So there is no harm in going to see a divorce lawyer, even if you're not ready to begin the process, even if you're not ready, if you think that divorce is right for you. Gathering and collecting information is so critical to make sure that in the event you do end up getting divorced, that you haven't made any errors that will ultimately hurt your case. So I would recommend, earlier the better. In terms of, do's and don'ts, there's a lot of different do's and don'ts. You need to be completely honest with your lawyer. I have had experiences where clients have not been transparent with me, and ultimately it comes back to bite them. So I think a really big do is to be honest with your lawyer so that you can get good advice and good guidance.
Yeah, I think a lot of times
Yeah.
things are revealed a little bit too late in the process, and now you're probably having to do more damage control at that point because things weren't disclosed.
Yeah, because at that point you're on the defensive, trying to explain something that you could have perhaps, dealt with in a better way.
And that makes for more work and more expense as well.
Yes, it certainly does. It certainly does. The other thing that I always tell people when they come in to see me is to start thinking about the financial landscape of their family. And if they're not exactly sure, then if they can copy any financial documents that they see or take photographs of it, it will be helpful ultimately in trying to understand the finances of the family. So, that's always a do in my estimation when people come to see me, especially when clients aren't financially sophisticated when it comes to what their family's assets and income may be. With regard to the don'ts, what I always recommend to clients with regard to the don'ts is don't say negative things about your spouse to your children or within earshot of your children. And I say that not only from a legal perspective, but from a parental perspective as well. Kids don't want to be in the middle of the fighting between their parents. They're not your friend. They are your children, and you shouldn't confide in them. If you feel the need to express yourself or express your dissatisfaction about your spouse, do it when your kids aren't home. Don't have a conversation with your friend if you know that your children are upstairs and could hear you. It will come back to bite you. It's just a very bad practice. So I always emphasize that to potential new clients who come in to see me. The other thing I always warn clients against is if they're going to be emailing, texting, any type of written communication with their clients, I suggest that they don't use emotional language, because those emails and texts and other written communications will be used as evidence. And if you've written an email or a text that has nasty language in it, it's going to reflect poorly on you. So I always recommend to potential new clients to be very careful with any writings that they are sending to their spouse. Make sure that they are even-keeled and that the tone of the email is not offensive. It is meant as a communication. You can include facts and data in it, but certainly nothing that would be inflammatory, because ultimately it will hurt you. So those are some of the do's and the don'ts that I recommend when potential new clients come in. I think those are probably some of the most important do's and don'ts, although I could probably take up a whole hour of this podcast.
Yeah. This is all really good advice. If you just tuned in to Divorce Doesn't Suck podcast, this is our first of our 12-part series with attorney Melissa Needle of Needle Cuda Law Firm. That's needle like the sewing needle, and Cuda spelled CUDA.com, needlecuda.com. We're talking mapping your new path forward, and we're talking about how to hire a divorce attorney. Melissa, this is all such great advice right here, and it's so important to know this up front so we don't make those mistakes, so it's not more work, so it's not more costly.
Exactly. You don't want to hire the wrong lawyer and then a few months in realize that you've made a mistake and have to switch.
And also, yes, and one thing that you said also that was so key is check the laws in your state, because every state is different.
Yes. Every state has their own set of laws and procedures with regard to the dissolution of a marriage. And you need to make sure that you check with a knowledgeable attorney so that you can understand the situation of your family and how a divorce would impact you.
During these last few years during COVID, what challenges got in the way? Were there challenges? What's changed? Has things gotten better? Has the process changed completely?
Yeah, so those are really good questions, Wendy. So COVID has had a impact on divorcing families. And the impact has been that there was a period of time when the courts were closed, as was, the country and the world. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that marriages weren't breaking down. So unfortunately, the system, the process was not able to handle the amount of divorces that were going on when things opened up. So there's an incredible backlog right now with regard to getting cases heard and entertained. So it can be very, very difficult if, for example, you're a spouse that needs financial support and your spouse is not providing that financial support. It can be a challenge to get the courts to intervene to make an order with regard to support. That's just one of many, many examples that we've run into as a result of COVID. Hopefully, over time, the system will catch up, but right now, things are very backed up, and you have to make sure that when clients come to see you, you explain this to them, and they need to just be patient, because there's not much that can be done, because the lawyers don't really have much control over how quickly the process moves. We're working at the mercy of the courts. And unfortunately, the courts are overwhelmed right now because they're trying to play catch up, basically. So you need to really sort of plan accordingly, and you can't think that a divorce is going to take simply a few months. I mean, maybe pre-COVID, it could have taken, 6 months, 9 months. Now you're looking at 12 months, 18 months, or maybe even longer.
Wow. And was the courts, were they open virtually?
They were open virtually for a period of time. And now they're doing a lot more things virtually. It's almost as if the system is changing slightly. As a divorce lawyer, pre-COVID, I used to be in court probably anywhere from 3 to 4 days a week. And post-COVID, I'm in court maybe 3 to 4 times a month now.
Oh, wow.
So things have really shifted, and the courts are doing a lot more business remotely. And it's still difficult to get a date to appear in court just simply because of the backlog.
Wow.
But that kind of plays into your thought. I'm thinking back to the skill set of a firm, being able to navigate the court system, having those relationships with the attorneys, the court reporters, everybody involved there is so critical, because sometimes when it's backlogged, I mean, your relationships may help, get answers that you need a little bit quicker than maybe others. How are you able to, as a client, how am I able to figure out whether an attorney has a good relationship and has good experience in the courtroom versus an adversarial role where all the judges hate him or her, and you're never going to get anything done?
Well, that's a great question, and my response to that would be, if you get the sense that the divorce lawyer is a person who is reasonable, who is fair, who is thoughtful, who is goal-oriented, then that is likely going to carry over to what the judges feel as well.
Good point. Yeah.
Whereas if you speak to a lawyer and you get the feeling that they are aggressive, that they are unreasonable, that they're looking to simply make some money on a case, that's a bad sign and will likely also carry over into the courtroom and what their reputation may be, with the judges.
I wish every person going into a divorce could hear this podcast just to kind of write down the things that they need to prepare for, because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. And, you're going through this emotional state where there's a lot of emotions that you're dealing with, right at the precipice or right in the middle of it. And I think a lot of times you go in to consult with an attorney, and to your point, you maybe just hire the first one out of the gate. You're not really evaluating a couple. You don't really have the right questions to ask because you don't know, or you're too emotional. And, that usually lends itself to some bad decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I suggest when clients come in that they should see more than one lawyer. And that way you can do the comparison, because selecting the right divorce lawyer is one of the most critical decisions you will make in your life. And it's a little ironic, because one of the most important decisions you'll make is who are you going to marry? And unfortunately, if you make a poor decision, the next important decision you're going to make is what divorce lawyer will you hire?
That's true.
I recognize the irony in that, but both are critical decisions, and if you make a mistake in the first one, pause and make sure you don't make a mistake in the second one.
Yeah, great wisdom.
It was really great wisdom. And I think talking about how to hire the right divorce attorney is so important in this first episode that we did. And also your advice on the do's and the don'ts of what to do saves time, saves money, and can helpfully make everything smooth, a smooth transition.
Absolutely. You don't want to make a mistake, even if it's prior to starting the process, because it will reflect poorly on you, and it could lead to some decisions that are not favorable.
Yeah.
So the earlier in the process you see a divorce lawyer, the better off you are.
And as you mentioned, Melissa, very early on, even if you're just thinking about getting divorced, even if it's a thought in your head, and check the laws in your state and just get some advice, and then you can move forward with the divorce, whether you choose to or whether you don't choose to. There's no harm in interviewing attorneys.
Absolutely. In fact, there's not only no harm, there's a huge benefit in doing so, because you'll be armed with the information to make the right decisions moving forward.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Any last thoughts?
Just try to make a good decision, and like I said earlier, your instincts are very important. You need to feel a connection with the lawyer because you're going to be sharing intimate, private information. You don't want to have to hesitate with doing that, so you want to make sure that there is a connection.
Yeah. Wendy, I'm so excited, and Melissa, to unpack so many different topics with you in this series. So I appreciate your time and your wisdom and insight.
And this is only, yes, we're going to have more. This is only our first of our 12-part series. Our next series will be, what is a divorce? We're going to be talking about that the next time with Melissa. If you just tuned in, Mapping Your New Path Forward with attorney Melissa Needle of Needle Cuda Law Firm. It's needle, like the sewing needle, Cuda spelled CUDA.com. That's needlecuda.com. I hope everybody listened. We hope everybody learned a lot from this episode, because it's so important when hiring a divorce attorney, all these things that Melissa had brought up. Melissa, we can't wait till the next one.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Danielle. I'm
Thank
happy
you so
to
much.
help.
Thanks so much, everybody. Until next time, this is Divorce Doesn't Suck with Wendy Sloane and Daniel Herrold. Needle Cuda Divorce and Family Law is an incredible resource for divorce and family law matters. Simply put, Needle Cuda is in the business of moving lives forward. Client reviews are everything, right? Well, listen to this. The American Institute of Family Law Attorneys named Needle Cuda their top 10 family law firm for client satisfaction for the past 4 years. That's huge. Managing partner, attorney Melissa Needle, has practiced family law for over 30 years. She has navigated hundreds of Connecticut clients through their personal divorce journey. Every story and experience is unique. Melissa shares her wisdom, learnings, and practical tips about divorce each month in our interview series called Mapping Your New Path Forward with attorney Melissa Needle. Melissa has built a reputation in Lower Fairfield County, from Greenwich to Westport, as an attorney who is forceful but fair. Her firm handles high net worth cases layered with contested custody and complex property division. We're so lucky to have her on Mapping Your New Path Forward with Melissa Needle. Tune in for Melissa's episodes and visit needlecuda.com. That's needle, like the sewing needle, Cuda spelled CUDA.com, needlecuda.com.